Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Psychedelics Today, joined by Greg Shanken. How are you today, Greg?
Doing awesome. Great to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. We got to hang out just last week, which was nice
Yes,
in Boulder. Yeah, thanks for the help there, and
of course.
glad to have you on to talk about your event and all the interesting stuff you're up to. Um, so, Collaborance is coming up just to get ahead of it, and then we'll kind of back into the rest of the podcast. Collaborance is coming up real soon. What is Collaborance?
Collaborance is a multi-state and online event that we are doing with PATA. When I say we, I wear quite a few hats. So this hat is the Colorado Psychedelic Society. We're a nonprofit that promotes awareness, education, and community around responsible use of psychedelics. And so we teamed up with PATA, that's the Psilocybin-Assisted Therapy Association based in Portland. On October 4th, will be an online programming. That's more for facilitators and professionals in the field. And then October 5th will be in person, both in Portland and Boulder. And we'll be doing some cool things to kind of tie the communities together and the events, those two events together. Yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I'm going to drop a link in the comments here, folks. Um, if you want to help support the conference, check it out and also help Psychedelics Today, higherfrequency.network/PT. You can find out more, save a little bit of cash there, and support Psychedelics Today. Cool.
Yep.
So, Greg, you've been um, doing a lot of interesting things in the space for a while. Could you give us kind of a broad overview of the different things that you're up to?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. Thank you. And so, yeah, someone said to me last week, wow, it's great how we wear all these different hats. And I said, do you have an extra hat rack lying around? And that person didn't because theirs was full too. So yeah, doing a lot of things, not nonprofit and for profit to pay the bills. So on the nonprofit side, as I mentioned, I'm the co-founder of the Colorado Psychedelic Society, which I co-founded after Prop 122 passed in November of 22. I was also an ambassador for Prop 122, so it was pretty amazing to and an honor to really join that effort that summer, and then 5 months later have the bill pass. And I kind of say tongue in cheek, people have been fighting for this since the 60s, and then here I come along 5 months before, yay, we won. So I played a role there, small role in a huge team, getting out the vote efforts and fundraising and sharing my story. Just really kind of embedding me with some of the leaders in the space. So it's really an amazing experience to be part of that. And so then we founded the society. It's a nonprofit, volunteer effort. So we are, of course, always looking for resources, and Collaborance will help us do that. So if you can attend, then that would be amazing to support our efforts there. So I do that ongoing. I also have owned a web development agency for 12 years called Gloss. And until my personal psychedelic transformation, which also started in 22, um, I wasn't really feeling much passion about it. If you ask me, hey, what kind of businesses are you serving? I'd say, like whoever comes along. And that's not really a good answer, but that's the answer I had because I really wasn't feeling passionate. And people say, find an industry you love and then serve it. And at the time, I wasn't feeling much passion about anything, really. I was, kind of dealing with a lot of depression, and that's kind of what led me to psychedelics. Um, and coming out of my first experience, which was ayahuasca, January 22, was like, okay, yeah, I know where I'm headed now. And so with my agency, started bringing in clients in the space, and really honored to work with some um, really amazing businesses and brands, anyone from solo practitioners up to ketamine clinics and attorneys that serve the space, retreats, just wonderful training programs, just wonderful clients. And I'm feeling really passionate about serving the space. So that's been a really big part of my transformation. And then along with that, I've observed along the way that um, a lot of students are coming through these training programs, and they kind of maybe think that people are going to beat the door down to work with them. And, it doesn't really work that way. So they need additional training outside of of course, the all important training to become a good healer, but we work in a capitalistic framework, and you need to get a client. So I do business web and
Hmm.
marketing trainings, and actually the very first one I did was in 2023 with for Vital, and that's actually been a big part of like a milestone for me because I've done that now for a bunch of other training programs. So I do that, and then most recently launched a private psychedelic marketing network called Higher Frequency Network, and you just shared that link. And what I observed in my travels is that we need, and I say we meaning in our space, need a better way um, to grow our businesses, but outside of the reach of the global ad networks like Google and Meta. And this was
Mm.
something I'd been, yeah, and I can pause if you,
Uh,
yeah,
it's just torture. It's
yeah,
torture to
it's,
like just not have any accountability and just how much effort we've all invested there. It's fucking
mhm,
crazy. So
yeah.
thank you for putting in some effort here.
Yeah, and it's kind of a wild synchronicity because before I had my agency, I was in the affiliate marketing and lead gen space for 5 years. And I actually, one of the big reasons I stopped doing that work was it's a very impersonal and transactional space, which doesn't make it bad, but for me, it wasn't really feeling aligned. You kind of join these networks and you kind of find something to sell and make some money with. I mean, it like that's kind of the calculus involved. Like, can I sell it? Can I make money with it? And like the rest is whatever. And so that wasn't really
Yeah.
feeling aligned. And I thought I left that world behind. I was, I moved on to an agency and now serving the psychedelic space. And about 6, 7 months ago, it occurred to me a bunch of light bulbs went on because when I was producing events or part of events, we'd reach out to friends, colleagues, and everyone you reach out to is happy to help. Sure, I'll post this on my Instagram. Sure, I'll tell my email list. We're all willing to help because we're working towards a larger cause, which is a beautiful thing and so unique in this space. Um, with no no expectation of a payment or return. Just yeah, we're here to help each other, and it goes both ways. Friend calls me like, yeah, how can I help? Like that's like right, like why we do this to spread healing, spread mental health, raise consciousness. And so we're all willing to do that. And so how can we create an ecosystem around that that does a couple things? One, allows us to expand our reach, meaning we can meet people that maybe we otherwise might not have known. And my network or my CLEO map has gotten pretty big, but it's not absolute. I do not know everyone in this space, um, and really nobody does. But it's a small enough space that we're kind of all like 2 degrees removed from everyone, right? Um, and so I noticed that. And then, as you know, Joe, this crazy social media purge started about 5 months ago, and started hitting anyone from small nonprofits to large nonprofits, everyone in between. I believe that you were maybe ensnared in some of that.
Oh, absolutely. Still am.
Still am, yeah. And I mean, it's not fun, right?
No. No.
Not fun. I
Like
mean,
business is hard enough.
yeah,
Um,
right, right.
business under censorship is even harder,
Yeah.
turns out.
Yes, and for those of you listening, um, basically, Meta, being Instagram, Facebook, started shutting down accounts in this space. You get an email saying your account's been permanently deleted, and go F yourself. And so that's the implied, go F yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're too polite to curse. They just say you're done. So they are polite. That's nice. And I've had friends caught in this, colleagues, and sometimes you get your accounts back, but then you have to, have that anxiety of will it go away? And then people say, well, wait, these are just the algorithms. But guess what? Humans create algorithms. So whether it's humans,
Mhm.
algorithms, the bottom line, it's happening. So anyway,
Yeah.
a little bit long-winded way of, but also important context of how I launched Higher Frequency. So um, again, wild synchronicity, an affiliate marketing ecosystem. We need this in our space. Accounts are getting shut down. And so that birthed Higher Frequency, which in business terms is known as an affiliate marketing network. A lot of folks don't know necessarily what that means if you haven't worked in the space, but an affiliate relationship is a business wants to sell something, an affiliate sells something on behalf of that business and earns a commission for doing so. That's it. So higher frequency is that for the psychedelic space. However, what makes it unique is A, it's not going to be anonymous. Community will be inherent in the platform. So instead of Joe being, affiliate 12976, it's Joe Moore, it's Greg Shanken. We're all going to meet and know each other, so we can understand, the offers and promotions that we're doing, and then help each other gain exposure. And it's all managed within the network. Payments are managed, ability to browse offers, it's all within higher frequency. And so the buzz so far has been pretty remarkable, because of the pains and challenges of working in this space, period. And then our accounts getting shut down, just like you pointed out. Like, it's hard enough,
Hmm.
man. Like, so that is what higher frequency is, and pretty stoked about it.
That's great. So we kind of fit a lot in to that. So I want to kind of like rewind the tape. What, were psychedelics really ever part of your world before that ayahuasca moment? Like, were you curious about it, thoughtful in any way, or how did that roll for you?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the question.
Hmm.
It's my answer sounds cliche because it really is kind of cliche. Doing lots of mushrooms in college and seeing the Grateful Dead, and that kind of dates myself. And I'm not talking about Dead and Co. I'm talking about The Grateful Dead with Jerry Garcia. So now I really dated myself. Um, and I had a lot of just beautiful spiritual experiences with that and being in those settings. However, I didn't know at that time its role in healing. That just wasn't in my purview, and we're talking, decades ago at this point. But yeah, I mean, amazing experiences just with live music and jam band music, and Grateful Dead and Fish and Jazz Fest and festivals and jam. So I'm a huge, huge, huge live music fan in that world. Um, but back then, no, didn't understand how it was connected to healing. And so, I mean, I can share how I then ended up uh, at ayahuasca. If
Yeah, please.
yeah. So I've struggled with depression my whole life, really, and depression's it sucks. It sucks, and so I've been on meds, SSRIs for 10 years, and SNRIs for 20 years, and ADD meds for 5 or 6 years. And for me, they quote worked, meaning I was not treatment resistant. They did what they're designed to do, which is tamp down those symptoms. And
Hmm.
so they worked for me. Um, but as a famous songwriter said, and maybe you'll recognize the lyrics, um, if you can heal the symptoms but not affect the cause,
Mm.
it's quite a bit like trying to heal a gunshot wound with gauze. So, and that's Trey Anastasio from Fish. So, got to get some song references in there. Hope you're not. Hope that's cool with you, Joe.
I'm not too closeted, just a little.
Yeah. So, but that line really resonates because that's what a lot of these medications do. So I was not depressed, but I went back into therapy, and in one of the first sessions, and this is being on meds, my therapist said, "Hey, Greg, where do you feel this in your body?" And literally, the question did not
Mm.
compute. It was like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about? Hmm? Body? Like, I have no black and blue marks." And that was a huge wake up call. It really showed me how disembodied I was and the price I was paying for being on these meds. And by the way, I don't condemn prescription meds if they're working for someone and you're okay with the side effects and you're happy. Like, I'm super happy for you. But for me, I decided to take a different path. And so that led me to ayahuasca. I joke I went like from zero to ayahuasca, even though I've had like the recreational background. Um, So that's what led me to ayahuasca in January 22. And of course, I had to titrate off the meds to do that safely, which I did. And I've been off those meds ever since. And yeah, I mean, like all of us, I could keep going about the um, on about the journey, and you can prompt me, but that's
I'm
how
kind of
that
curious, like
kind of
where
led
you
me to
went.
that.
Like, did you
Yeah,
go domestic? Did you go international?
yeah. I
Kind of
went.
like a
I went.
church route.
Yeah, I went domestic. It was a referral from a psychedelic healing coach friend I have in Oregon, and he
Hmm.
referred me to an amazing guide in actually Malibu, and that's where it was. And not to fast forward too much, but then I went back to her earlier this year for two Bufo sits, so my first Bufo experiences. So, but yes, and then I went on two other retreats that year, also domestic, and all of them transformational in so many ways. But about a month, almost to the day after each retreat, my depression would come back, and then that led me to other medicines like ketamine and Bufo. And now after 3.5 years, I feel like some real progress is being made. There are lots of wins along the way. But if you ever saw that healing graph with my finger going up and down here, and
Hmm.
straight line graph gradually up, but holy crap, lots of
Yeah.
lots of tears and pain, and but also redemption and coming through it. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, um, in some ways, you must have had some kind of, I don't know, training wheels came off a little bit with your experiences in the festival and kind of concert and live music world, right? Like it wasn't like going from, all you know is a martini to to ayahuasca. It was like a little bit like different of a transition than you might see other folks have. Or how do you see that?
Do you mean different, or how do you? I just want to make
Like,
sure I
so
understand
you're
your
going
question.
from zero to ayahuasca, but you're not
Yeah,
really going from zero to ayahuasca because you've been to all these other experiences and been deep into the
sure.
music. And, I've had a similar path, but I had, a outrageous amount of breathwork experience before I went into ayahuasca. But that was breathwork to ayahuasca, not breathwork music ayahuasca. So
Yeah,
it was like,
right.
um, but after too much fish and Burning Man and whatever, and assorted boats, like how do I like it's not a zero to ayahuasca moment for me in that perspective. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear what you're saying. Um, yeah, and I still enjoy recreational psychedelics for sure, and I think that it does. Going from recreational psychonaut to transformational psychedelic experiences, and maybe that's kind of the context you're asking about. Um, and yeah, so it's not exactly like zero to ayahuasca, but certainly on the healing side, it was. But having those recreational experiences definitely helped give me kind of a context of being in community and bringing in love, right? I definitely feel that in live music experiences, and and gratitude also. So there are uh, overlap, right, between recreational and healing, and then obviously each of those containers have very unique aspects as well.
Right.
Yeah,
It's interesting, right? It's like uh-oh, my video
yeah,
broke.
I see.
Um
I saw
well,
that. I saw that.
interesting. That's a first, I think. But yeah, all of a sudden your eyeballs don't work and you don't know the right orientation. So yeah, I guess I really push the limits in a lot of these recreational scenarios, as many do, and like I think I found it helpful for being able to handle higher dose kind of weirder things because it was like okay, for 5 days I'm not really gonna have an orientation, so like so what if it's 2 hours of not having like kind of habituated to it. So I felt it was kind of like a weird preparation in a way.
Mm,
Um, for being able to do the bigger, more interesting, weirder things.
hmm.
Um, yeah, and at times, Greg, I actually kind of framed it as I didn't know we were going to go here, by the way. as being
All
like
good.
some sort of like music Pythagorean kind of cult where you're kind of like it's you and the music's doing really interesting things, and you're kind of seeing behind the scenes in some ways by being with the music so deeply, and with movement, because
Yeah,
often
for
there's
sure.
dancing too. Yeah.
Yes, I've been known to dance a little bit. Yeah, but no, that I love those comments because I hadn't really thought of that parallel to, the movement part, being in our body. And I think that's, reflecting back as I've shared, kind of being numbed out with the pharmaceutical meds, but music was still always my happy place. And so much of that is the movement. I mean, it's just, oh yeah, so somatic, and the music moves you, and you move with the music and with your friends, and hugs and touch and love. And so yeah, I think those recreational containers can certainly help set one up for deeper psychedelic journeys on the healing side. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to like oversell it either, right? There's risks, there's
Oh, of
concerns, like
course.
people
Oh
fall
yeah.
off hard sometimes and can have a really hard go. So it's not beginner terrain, folks. Um yeah, so be careful. Just like with all of it, this is not, a clear easy pathway. Um
Yeah.
and um yeah. So so it's kind of interesting you access the services in Malibu. I think that's like a, you know, it's an iconic city in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, really having a hard time right now recovering from the fire, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just like there's so much right there. There's so much in Topanga, which is right next door to the canyon.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, psychedelic central, it seems like to me, or at least
Yeah.
psychedelic hippie central. I don't know
Yeah.
um, what the use is like there, but it's kind of analogous to Boulder. So you're kind of
Yeah.
like went from one to the other in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. LA's got a lot of, in Southern California, San Diego, Santa Barbara, a lot of friends, communities. Yeah, a lot of in that part of California. Of course, growing everywhere now, but yeah, that's where I ended up. And then the second one was outside Seattle. The third one was here in Boulder. So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's great. And was it like harrowing for you, or was it just a look behind the curtains to say, oh, there's a lot more here than I really was grappling with before? How did that kind of roll for you? You don't have to get
Mm,
too specific, but
yeah.
feel free as much as you'd like.
Yeah, I've learned about myself that I'm an open book, so
Hmm.
I can get I have, for whatever reason, I it's almost healing for me to be vulnerable, and it's another beautiful thing about this space. Walking around psychedelic science and getting lots of hugs and sharing our story. Being in this space, it's just like a friendship accelerator, right? I mean, friendships take long to cultivate, but in this space, they go fast in the best
Hmm.
possible way. And so for me, with that first experience, it was a 2 night ceremony, and I did combo that morning. Didn't even know what that was. The guide said, "Hey, Greg, you've been titrating off the meds. Um, let's do combo." I said, "Okay, what's that?" And so that was wild. I've done it quite a few times since. And I also just want to make sure you're asking me about kind of like this first experience and how I came into this. Is that
Um, like, yeah, just give us whatever kind of narrative feels right.
Yeah, cool. And I'll keep it high level. But yeah, just to give kind of a good context for anyone who's considering this, and I don't see you anymore, so I'm not sure if you
I'm
popped
still
off
here.
again. Okay, cool.
Still here.
Um, so yeah, night one was, and this kind of ties back to some of our discussion around the recreational side, and I didn't know anyone there. Coincidentally, it was all women. It was not a women's retreat. That was just how yeah, that's just what it was.
Hmm.
And I have, Joe, I've never laughed so hard in my life, and I've laughed a lot in my life, and in the settings we've talked about, and some of the fun substances that we've done. And I mean, like, my ribs were sore the next day. It was just this joyous, buoyant. It was just amazing. I'm like, this. I knew enough to know that that wasn't the norm. I could also hear so many others in the room crying and not having this fun experience, to the point where I was becoming actually self-conscious about it.
Hmm.
And the next night was the most terrifying night of my life, even to this day, after doing a lot more psychedelics. I mean, yeah, man, it was my interpretation of that, and through integration was that grandmother, as ayahuasca is sometimes known, was showing me what I had not been experiencing. I was kind of in this mid range of flat, which is what a lot of these
Hmm.
meds are designed to do, just keep you
Yeah.
in this kind of
Hmm.
neutral range. And night one, and I'm glad she did it in this order. Night one was, hey, welcome to the spirit world. Welcome to ayahuasca. Welcome to plant medicines. Have fun. And I did. And then the next night, holy crap, wow. So, kind of, she was bringing me to this full range of emotion that I had not been feeling for, since I'd been on these meds. So, um, I'm glad she did it in that order, because I think if it was reversed, I would have gotten on the next plane home. But yeah, so that was my first retreat, and it was, I learned so much from it and took so much from it, and that being the big one. Just like, hey, Greg, hello, emotion, you know, bring it all in. Yeah,
And where do you stand currently on kind of like the plant and animal derived psychedelics compared to like chemical psychedelics?
yeah.
You as an
So
individual.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I went on 3 retreats that year, as I shared, and when my depression came back after that third one, um, it was just instead of going back into medicine, I said, I just want to. It was almost like I just want to see what happens. Like, can I navigate through with the other modalities I have, breathwork being the big one. And actually, it was my second retreat where we did breathwork every morning, and that was my kind of welcoming into breathwork. And I'm a huge breathwork fan and practitioner. I know you are too. And so, I was in therapy, breathwork, other yoga, and my depression just kept getting worse and worse through that whole last 3 months. And so something had to change. So that's when I started using ketamine in 23. IM, intramuscular. And for me, ketamine's been a really profound, powerful medicine. I walked into that first session as low, I'll say one step above suicidality. I've had suicidal
Hmm.
thoughts, but not, in the danger zone. And I walked in and had that session and came out. It was such a lift, such relief. I knew it wasn't one and done. I knew, but it was just relief. And now it's so clear to me how ketamine can save lives. Pharmaceutical meds can save lives too, but they can take 4 to 6 weeks to kick in. This was like instant relief.
Hmm.
Um, wow. So I used ketamine. I actually did IM ketamine almost every month for 2 years, and now I'll get to your question about, so
Hmm.
that's like my chemical side of, in this
Were you
spectrum
comfortable
of
in that experience? Was it like a little too
I,
extreme?
no, I was very comfortable. I mean,
Hmm.
as strong as a heavy dose of ketamine can be,
Hmm.
it's a gentle on ramp, and then you're just kind of blasted into a ego dissolution. So, and I'm talking about, intramuscular heavy doses. They're also, as lower dose containers with,
Hmm.
in a therapeutic setting. And I was being supported in therapy, throughout. So it wasn't just, get a shot and go home. I was
Yeah.
still working with IFS and parts. Um, but after 2 years of that, I kind of realized I sort of took it as far as it could go. I just felt like I wasn't going to get more out of it. And that led me this year into Bufo. So 5-MeO DMT Bufo. I've had 2 sits, and wow, that has been, for me, Joe, just been completely transformed. All these experiences have, but I just feel like Bufo has really, I can just feel it as I'm talking. Like it's just, I don't know, I kind of feel like I found my medicine in Bufo. And kind of getting back to our earlier comments, like that's one that I don't say this with ego, but it's like, although I just did meet someone today, I said I went zero to ayahuasca, and he said I went zero to Bufo. But I don't know if I'd necessarily recommend that, like for someone who's like never done psychedelics to jump right into Bufo, and that's just my context and feeling. I wouldn't tell anyone what to do or not to do, but Bufo's, it's ineffable, hard to describe, but so yeah, so I've kind of run the gamut with plant medicines and the you know um, chemical substances, and they've all given me benefits.
So, have we ever had the talk about Bufo?
No, but I'd love to.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, Bufo. Let's talk about it.
So, yeah, I'm so glad that we're talking about it. So,
Yeah,
um, this has ruined some friendships. I'll put it out there. Um, and yeah, some people don't talk to me anymore.
mm,
I've been working on this for years and years. So, have you heard of the concept of blood toad?
no,
Okay,
I've not.
great. And I assume you're talking about toad source 5-MeO-DMT, right?
That's what I've done, and I do know about
Hmm.
the different viewpoints there, if that's what you
Hmm.
mean.
Yeah,
So,
we're getting
but
into the conservation
yeah,
thing briefly.
cool. Yeah, let's do
So,
it.
like, the first person that kind of really laid it out well for me was this herpetologist, so lizard researcher out of Tucson, Robert Villa. He's been
Okay.
on the show a bunch of times. He's written a really comprehensive paper on conservation of the toad, so it kind of features a lot of really good data points in there around actual reasons for concern, including that it's like kind of officially declared extinct in New Mexico and effectively extinct in California as well. Um, Now the cartels involved, we call those blood toad.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
So there's actually illicit trafficking, and it's like if you are not doing it yourself, there's no way to really promise that you're not getting involved with like cartel affiliated toad.
Yeah.
And by doing it yourself, you can actually harm huge swaths of toad population. You can actually introduce fungus that can kill huge amounts of them. And then yeah, even if you pick them up, bring them somewhere, harvest the venom, put them back down in the ground, you could introduce fungus. You could leave them defenseless in terms of like not being able to like defend themselves and or find their way home. A lot of people think, oh, it's toad. There's no home. It's like, well, no, you kind of like learn your little home area, just like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of mammals do, and you can protect yourself easier when you know the environment. And then there's this researcher who's on our advisory board, Malin Uthaug, Malin maybe. She published some of the first papers talking about how synthetic 5-MeO-DMT is subjectively identical to um, toad sourced. And so there's like actual research and pretty good sample size kind of showing that. Um, so it's a really long, big conversation, but
Yeah.
just the long and short, especially with the decline in the populations, radically seeing a decline, and Mike Tyson and other big name people hyping it.
Yeah.
I just don't see how it's conscionable. Like how can we have a good conscience while we're consuming toad sourced five when the synthetic is available? If it's a really, really religious thing, perhaps it could be done like once a decade or something, and the other stuff could be safer, more safely used.
Mm-hmm.
It's only like $3 to $5 per dose probably for synthetic, maybe less. Um, and then yeah. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I always have. I haven't found a reasonable reason um, to deviate yet. Perhaps
Yeah.
there is a spirit of the toad that's helpful, but it's like let's sacrifice the toad to the extinction bucket for our benefit. It's like doesn't really feel like the right thing to me. And again, the way I phrase it is often a little too harsh, and I've lost friends over it. But
Mm,
It's a real thing, and I even wrote a pretty big article on it like kind of a month or two ago. I think right before the
yeah.
burnout, put that up. So that's my story. Is that
Wow.
largely what you've heard?
Yes, in large part it hasn't. And I
Hmm.
read, I did read your article. I think you posted it on LinkedIn, or at least linked to
Yeah.
it from LinkedIn. And I, I was already aware of that school of thought, and also through, leaders like Five, Joel Briere and Victoria from Tintava Retreats, and that's their viewpoint. Um, and so, well, first of all, you haven't lost a friend in me, but you also said it was the way you said it. Maybe you said it really harsh. To me, you were very, very, yeah, just measured about it. So we're definitely still friends for sure. So yeah, I've heard, like I said, I've had two sits, and this isn't in a saying this in a defensive posture. I know that the guy that I sit with is, um, ethically sourcing it, and but still, to your point, doesn't matter how quote ethical it's being done, there are still a lot of, you know landmines around this, be it cartel or, like you
Yeah.
said, introduce. So yeah, and then in terms of the experience itself, what it is that at high doses it kind of feels the same. At lower doses, maybe it is a different experience. I've done the high dose, um, but anyway, obviously, I want to be, ecologically responsible, and so my two sets have been with Bufo the toad, and
Hmm.
um, but I'm aware of these, you know, um, some of the conflicts around it. And so, yeah, as I sit here right now, I'm not married to one, and I'm not going to come and punch, punch back on the other side of that. It's, I'm navigating my way through it, and
Hmm.
I always bring a beginner's mindset. So, you yeah. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for hearing that. And it's like always a hard one for me. A similar position on peyote. I just try to tell white folks to stay away. I was like, there's no there's no real reason why we need to be doing it unless you
Yeah.
have some sort of crazy sincere religious interest and um, good friends that really want to bring you into NAC. And
Hmm.
NAC is so politically complicated. I like there's all sorts of branch offs and complicated politics there. So I just try to say, hey, everybody, this is really hard. Maybe back off for a while. Um,
Yeah.
and maybe there'll be a good landing eventually for us.
And
But
that was,
it's
that
so
was,
hard.
yeah. Sorry. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. I was just reflecting back that Prop on 22, that was one of the big carve outs, that it was mescaline, not peyote, in the bill.
Hmm.
Oregon did not do that. Whenever I talk about any differences between Colorado and Oregon or enhancements, I say it with the utmost of respect, and then I do this, like the bow down, because they were the first.
Hmm.
And so thank
Hmm.
you, Oregon, and New Mexico can say thank you, Colorado, but they can also say, hey, Colorado, you're making mistakes. So that was a really responsible piece of the bill here, that it was mescaline, but specifically not peyote, and that was out of respect for, indigenous lands, and the themes that you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And to go a little further, I guess this indigenous reciprocity and like not encroaching too much conversation is coming up a lot. I've heard a lot of pushback on the mushroom stuff in Oregon and Colorado because of the lineage with the Mazatec. And I think there's something to look at there. I don't know the answer. Um, some people say slow down. I try to pivot and say LSD and MDMA, like they're kind of ours. So like let's lean into the molecules that are ours and don't
Hmm.
necessarily have such a complicated background. And um, yeah, I just it's a very complicated time to be doing um, kind of legalization work and popularization work. We want to be delicate when we can, and um, yeah, make space for being delicate if we can. Everybody,
Yeah,
yeah.
agreed on that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've bumped into some interesting, hard conversations there. Have you any particular stories around that?
Yeah, I mean, during the campaign, at this point, I was new in this space, and so at that point, I was surprised to hear that there were people, kind of very much in our world, Joe, people that we see at conferences and that and say hi and hug, um, that were against Prop 122. And
Mm.
again, this is Greg 3 years ago, certainly more naive than I was like, what? How? How could you be? How could you be against this? I don't mean to the general population because there's a lot of people outside our space who think drugs are evil and yada yada. I'm talking about people in our world, and I was like, what? And they felt it didn't go far enough, or that it didn't do enough for respect for indigenous rights and reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was at a conference, and someone stood up and really was very vocal about it. I guess I don't really want to name names, but it got it got very uncomfortable. And again, this was someone in our space, and yeah, it really shook up it really shook up the room. So yes, even with our in our small, wonderful, beautiful community, there still will always be factions, right? Whether it's Bufo versus 5MEO or peyote,
Mm.
versus, or
Right.
like you said, like, hey, like let's stick with our molecules. So yeah, these are some of the thorny issues that we're dealing with and navigating. Yeah.
So, what kind of stuff is exciting you about Oregon and Colorado collaborating on an event like Collaborance and kind of scaling this stuff and helping figure it out together? Because this is not an easy thing to solve for, right? This is a really complicated project. But yeah, has been exciting you?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of complexities in this space, and it's I value kind of the love affair between Colorado and Oregon and New Mexico. Come on in, and Alaska, come on in, and it's going to be a warm welcome for anyone who wants to be in this movement, even if you're in a state that's not at all where you want it to be. Like we're all working together here. It's just kind of funny when you look at a map and you see just lines, and it's like on this side of the line you can do this, and that side of the line you can't do that. So what's exciting is the excitement. I mean, it's the growth in the awareness. And I always think about like I use the persona of like the soccer mom in Iowa, and
Mm-hmm.
the PTSD inflicted veteran in whatever Texas, right? And they hear Oprah talking about psychedelics, and maybe they're not tuned into this podcast because they might not know it exists. Um, but certainly they know Oprah exists. And so, or a friend says, "Oh, I read this article about microdosing and how it helps," and it's like, okay. But then she says to herself, or he says to himself, "Okay, like now what? Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
where do I get access to this? How do I do it? How do I do it safely? Oh, wow, to do it legally, I have to fly to Oregon or Colorado. That could be really hard."
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's taking care of the kids or just the money to do it, plus the cost of the journey. So you asked me what I'm excited about. I'm pointing out these things that are challenges, and there are many. What I'm excited about is that people are coming and organizations are coming together, whether it's putting on events like Collaborance to raise awareness and provide education around responsible use, harm reduction, microdosing, which is a great pathway in, or breath work, right? Which, as you know, we don't need substances to get into, you know, um, a mind altering or expanding journey, and that's a great pathway in. But so there are many nonprofits and even for-profits that are doing amazing work to help with accessibility. So a few I'll mention. One is Thank You Life. They're out of Austin. They raise money to help send people into ketamine treatment that may not be able to otherwise afford it. And then there are organizations like Althea, which is just started what's called the Forward Fund, and it's very similar, but that's for psilocybin. And then even with Collaborance, of course, we're selling tickets, but one of the options on the checkout page is pay what you can, and we really mean it. Pay what you can. If it's $1, we want you in the door. We want you in the circle. We want you learning. We want you asking questions. Um, and so I think that because all of us, kind of wherever we are, it may be some of the conflicts within it, we still want to give everyone access. So that's something I'm really excited about is collaboration, um, awareness, education, access, and the understanding that we just really need to do everything we can to make these medicines and modalities accessible, no matter your income, geography, race, religion, all those things that can divide us, but we're not looking at it that way. So that's a big thing that I'm excited about. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I love it. And there's just so much room for improvement in the space and um, community building connection. There's a lot of
Yeah.
what we lost. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I, worked in corporate software for 20 years, and this kind of like isolation, driving to the office, like you're in traffic, your body hurts, you're not moving very much, you're not necessarily able to access the best foods all the time, and you don't get to be with the people you love the most as much as you'd like. And there's just a lot of complicated factors around this kind of corporate thing and business thing
Yeah.
these days in
Yeah.
America. And I think psychedelics can help us kind of repair our relationship to that. Do you tend to agree, or how do you see that?
I do, and I know people who are doing. I'm sure you do too. Coaches that are working with executives or teams and bringing microdosing, breath work, into that space to help people become better leaders or heart-centered leaders. In Boulder, about 3 months ago, the second annual Conscious Entrepreneurs Summit, and it was not a psychedelic summit, although it was a psychedelics friendly crowd. But literally, when it started, it was, um, they put up the rules, and one of the rules, no pitching, no talk of metrics and spreadsheets, and they obviously wouldn't kick you out if you did that, but it was like that was the ethos, right? Like we're here to become better leaders, entrepreneurs, founders in a way that's more aligned with, um, those deeper values that can tend to be overlooked or completely ignored in the conventional corporate settings. And I worked in the corporate software world too for a couple of decades, so I feel you. And that's why I would say, these conferences, like, when you were in the software world, Joe, did you ever go to like a trade show and get lots of hugs? I mean, I didn't. Um, so, you know,
No, no,
hugs,
it's people that just
hugs.
want to drink really hard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, like that certainly helped my alcohol habit at the time,
Yeah,
in
right.
negative ways. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's just shocking. I had maybe one or two really, really sweet friends in corporate America, you
Hmm.
know, and were they even American? And I think one was Chinese, and then
Okay.
and the others were probably Canadian. So it's fascinating,
Yeah.
But yeah, not trade shows like that. No, no, it's just a
Yeah.
hug fest.
It
It's
is.
other
It is. It
things.
is. It is. So I think, um, businesses are waking up and leaders are waking up and just realizing maybe in themselves, hey, this like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Um, and so I think once they have that transformation, psychedelics can be a big aid in kind of raising consciousness and awareness and helping those leaders transform. And then once one goes through that type of transformation as a leader, founder, executive, ideally that can then spread into the organization, and that's a
Hmm.
good thing. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so who who out there has been kind of an inspiration to you in kind of like digging in to this kind of project with the enthusiasm you have?
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
okay to leave people out; they'll maybe understand.
Well, I was about to mention you, but
Ah,
and
you leave
absolutely
me out.
yeah. A big one has been Joe Tafur, the author of Fellowship of the River,
Great
and
book.
that's where yeah, great book, and he has a new book which I have not read yet, but it's so it's called Fellowship of the River, and he's a Western trained medical doctor. He's of Colombian descent, and he went through his own transformation in medical school, where he was stressed out and freaking out. He went to the nurse's office or doctor's office on campus because he was having so much anxiety, and they said, "Oh no, you're just having medical school syndrome. Like, go back, you're fine." And he was not fine. And I know that
Hmm.
feel. I mean, he was not fine, and then he discovered the medicine, and so the book is really inspirational because he brings the credibility of the Western, medical training, because there are good things about that, not all of it, but it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? And but then he became literally a shaman in Peru and opened up a retreat there. And so the book is really inspirational because he has that credibility, and literally he's talking about Western medical principles and then singing Icaros to people and helping them, solve and cure IBS,
Yeah.
anxiety, depression. So that's been he's been a big one for me. Um,
I
and
love that Scott Shannon did the
yeah.
forward to this new book, by the way. I'm really excited about that. And
Oh, cool. Yeah, I
yeah.
actually didn't notice that. Yeah, so that's his new book. So that was a big one for me. Um, I'm sure there definitely are others, but that's one that sticks out because that was so early on in my
Hmm.
uh, you know um, transformational journey. Yeah,
Let's say Jerry Garcia.
Jerry Garcia. Yeah, yeah. If you want to go there, sure, Jerry Garcia. Uh-huh. I quoted Trey before, and they're both so spiritual and bringing that spirit into the music, um, and then that music bringing community, and yeah, we could go on and on about that, and maybe someday we will. But oh yeah, yeah, lots of amazing musicians and their wisdom. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. So how about like worldview and metaphysics? So like a lot of people kind of, they get that kind of corporate dead soul feel. And then, there's not really much metaphysics. It's like, am I going to be able to make it through? Like, you know, what is morality and ethics, and where's my soul going to go when I die? All this, it's not really there all the time when you're just kind of like grinding and working, right? And then stuff gets a little more exciting when psychedelics come in. Exciting in that you're engaging in ideas in a felt
yeah.
way. Like, was there a big shift for you in kind of like, I guess, worldview, but in like a really big way? If you catch my drift, like,
Hmm.
philosophically and spiritually.
Yeah, that's a great question, and um, I mean, my worldview has certainly changed. My relationship with money, capitalism, having to rethink who I am in contrast to what my little kid self thought I would be and wanted to be and didn't turn out to be, but realizing that that was being driven by young traumatized parts of myself. And I'm in IFS parts work, so I can look at things from a parts perspective, though I still need help from my therapist to smack me and say, Greg, it's your parts, stop unblending. If using parts work terminology. But I was thinking about this the other day because I'm really digging into AI. Definitely not an AI expert, but I'm immersing myself in AI and just absolutely blown away by it. And I listened to this daily podcast. It's called the AI Daily Brief. It's a really good podcast. It's like 20 minutes and just gives you um, and I'm learning so much from it in terms of how to think about AI and strategy and tools. And but then they'll get into discussions about mergers and takeovers and 20 billion from this company buying that company, and it's like I kind of want to know those things because just to have like a pulse on what's happening like in the business part of it. But to your question, I'm just like, who the fuck, like 20 billion over here and 79 trillion? It's like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, they're doing what they need to be doing, building a business. But I don't know. It's like it's hard to explain. It was hard even when it like hit me. I was like, So um, so my worldview has dramatically changed
Hmm.
in terms of just what it's cliche, but like what are we here to do? What's our meaning? What's our purpose? What's my meaning? What's my purpose? And I've certainly come a long way in that within myself, but it just does get to that existentialism of like, what are we doing? And then as we talk about psychedelics, there's a lot of good answers to that we're doing some cool
Hmm.
stuff. We're raising awareness and healing people, and now the healing centers are open here. If you ask me what I'm excited about, I've been to two open houses in the past month, um, Mamoru and Chariot, two great um, healing centers, and Mamoru is a spinoff of Naropa, and Mamoru is actually a client of mine. just tying back to earlier, like they had to spin off of Naropa because they were going to lose their insurance policy because Naropa had a Center for Psychedelic Studies. So they had to literally spin off new entity, and that was a big, pain in the ass. But I was at their open house, and it was like there were tears, there were hugs. I mean, it was just so. Weaving it back to my comments, like a large part of what we're like, that's what we're doing. We're healing and helping each other, and then those other companies can talk about the $20 trillion, takeovers, and that's fine, but it's not where I'm spending a lot of my time and, and energy.
Not what
So
you're here for. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right. It's more about building this kind of like mutual aid and support, healing infrastructure where we're, able to actually get to know each other, not always make it transactional in a
yeah,
I need to buy your $20,000 pill kind of format.
yeah,
But like, yeah, there is a place for expensive treatments, everybody. But like a lot of this stuff we can do with much more affordable treatments um, than that. And what, Greg? How do you? We actually had a rap the other day. I think it was Thursday about the programs being like at a kind of disadvantage because the state kind of put in a lot of regulations because the state needed to feel safe doing such an edgy thing, which, congrats to Colorado and Oregon for doing such a big thing. But, it's now really expensive to access these services in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Um, like, how do you like to think about this kind of this phase of the larger psychedelic project and legalization versus decrim and in this various access paradigms?
Yeah. So yes, I have a lot of feelings and thoughts around that. So it's a good thing that these states are making these treatments and healing modalities legal because that's going to raise awareness and that's going to help bring this to more people, and that's a good thing. Um, but anything in the regulated model is just going to cost more. I mean, a healing center has a brick and mortar structure that they have to pay for, get insurance for, and adhere to the regulations. Um, and so the treatments are going to be more expensive than going underground. It's 2,500, $3,000 for those treatments for my psilocybin journey. And if you're coming from the outside, you're that soccer mom or military vet dad. So you hear Oprah talking about psychedelics, and then $3,000, and I got to fly to Colorado. What the fuck? Like, what are these people doing to, you know, extract money from us? Now, you and I know a lot of these people. They're not there to extract money. They're there to heal, and then they got to pay
Mm-hmm.
their rent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and then, once you know about this, which I know you do, two prep sessions, 6 or 8 hour journey, two integration sessions. If you kind of like net that out, a practitioner's making about the same as what a therapist would make, 150 to 200 an hour, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you just hear $3,000, then and you don't know anything else about it, it's like, what the fuck, right? Um,
And it's hard
so I know
work.
it's hard work, it's draining work, and I'm in training for it myself. And so, yeah, it's obviously hard to be a client, and it's hard and draining to be a facilitator. And so, um, but then, you know, you can do this, you can, gain access to these underground, but if you're that soccer mom, even the term underground sounds like a, dirty basement. When if it's with someone reputable, it's a beautiful ceremony space. It just means they don't have a license from the state. But now your cost could be $1,000, and a lot of them say sliding scale, like pay what you can, just like we're doing with Collaborance. And um, so I'm absolutely thrilled that there's a regulated model, and yet, a lot of brings up a lot of thorny issues, and a lot of people that are even going through training in the training that I'm in are choosing to go underground. So I'm kind of touching on a lot of different aspects of it, and then of course none of this is covered by insurance, but yet, and then there's really wonderful organizations like uh, Thank You Light for Ketamine and Althea for psilocybin that are helping on the accessibility side. So yeah, those are some of my. Oh, I'll just add a couple of things, which is that service centers in Oregon, and they call them service centers there. And I I'm not a branding expert, but I do have an eye towards branding. And doesn't a service center, doesn't that sound like a place where you kind of like bring your car when it's broken? But somebody made the decision to call them service centers, servicing your, mind, spirit. And I'm just poking fun at Oregon because, again, thank you, Oregon. We call them healing centers here. Seems more aligned. But some of them are already going out of business. Now, some of them maybe shouldn't have been in business. They didn't have the business acumen, and they just said, "Hey, kind of like starting a dispensary cannabis." But I don't think that explains all of kind of some of the some of those failures out there, business failures. But I have a client out there, and she said, we haven't made money in a year, and it's been the best year of my life. That's what she said because they're seeing the healing. They still got to pay the bills. And then now we have the regulated model opening here, and we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, definitely can be on my soapbox there, but those are some of the sort of pieces of it that I see within this landscape.
Yeah, it's really a set of interesting things we just need to keep working on. I think you're going to help address that to some degree at Collaborance, and like how do
Oh
we
yeah.
actually start praising these things or different kinds of offerings that are actually more attractive, because you're right, like it's a really hard sale. Um but it's important to have these safe containers up, especially for people with like really serious issues and um yeah, or just vulnerable folks in general. um I think for some folks it's really okay to offer 5 hour sit, but for other folks it's not. It's very much not okay for that to be the only part of the offer.
Hmm.
It's a really interesting thing that we're all kind of trying to sort out together here. So
Yeah.
thanks for your efforts. And can you give us a plug for Collaborance again?
Sure. So yeah, it's a 2-day event. It's going to be amazing. Amazing speakers, sponsors, vendors, exhibitors, experiential events. Saturday is going to be is online. That is more for professionals in the space. Sunday, community day, open to anyone and everyone, psychedelic curious, psychonauts, facilitators, anyone. And that's in Portland and in Boulder. So if you go to higherfrequency.network/PT, P is in psychedelics, T is in today. So higherfrequency.network/PT. You can learn more about it. You can get a special 20% Psychedelics Today discount. And then you can also sign up for the Higher Frequency Network, which is the private vetted psychedelic marketing network I mentioned earlier, and join our launch list. We are in a beta launch now, but please sign up if you have any interest at all. There's no cost to join. And then a lot more will be coming out about that really in the next couple of weeks because the interest has been really, really strong. But as far as Collaborance, it's also a nonprofit event. You're supporting nonprofit organizations like Colorado Psychedelic Society and PATA doing great work. And the accessibility piece, I'll just say again, we are selling tickets, but there is an option right on the page. Pay what you can and just come on in. Just pay what, don't let that stop you. Get a ticket, come on in, and let's have some hugs.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks so much for making it today, Greg. Thanks for sharing a bunch about your journey and your opinions, and excited to see where this goes. And not only with Collaborants, but with higher frequency. So let's keep it rolling. Thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, man. Great to be here.